I'm sitting here discussing my problem with myself. I got divorced because my wife cheated on me. I've been divorced for a year now. I have no children or immediate family in the area. I'm telling you this because I want another man's wife. I don't know if it's love, need, lust, infatuation, or just the desire to have her. I do know that revenge is part of it. You see, I don't know her that well. I often meet her when I go for lunch. She works in the same building as me. I tried to find out as much information about her as possible. I'm going to get her, but my problem is, then what? In some ways, it's a terrible feeling, wanting someone so badly that I would be willing to take her by force, if necessary. So far, I have found out that she is about 30 years old. Nice petite build. Breasts that stick out from under her blouse without a bra. She wears miniskirts or tight pants. There are never any creases in her pants, so she either wears a thong or goes without underwear. As far as I can tell, she's married to a loser. She has no children and is something of a flirt. Her husband is a loser because he doesn't know what he has and is willing to risk losing her. The worst thing about him is that he ruined my marriage. He slept with my wife, and now I will make him pay by possessing his wife. I think that if I take her and have sex with her, I will be doing her a favor. In case you haven't figured it out yet, I'm nuts. A real son of a bitch. I've been like this ever since I caught my wife cheating. One day I came home from work early and just walked into my house. I didn't really pay much attention to anything and just went into my bedroom to change clothes. There, in the middle of the bed, lay my wife, spread out on the floor, while another man owned the hell out of her. She saw me and screamed, and that pathetic bastard thought he had done a good job on her. He was just reaching the peak of pleasure when I grabbed him by the shoulders and pulled him away from my cheating wife. When I threw him to the floor and started beating the crap out of him, my crazy wife just kept screaming. I gave that pathetic bastard a pretty good run. When he started to get up, I dragged him to the door and threw him naked right into the street. I threw his wallet and car keys onto the grass, but not his clothes. He stood up, staggered to his car, turned into a bloody mess, and drove off. I never saw or heard from him again until fate intervened one day. Then I returned to the bedroom, where my pathetic wife was quickly getting dressed. She cried, "Kevin, this is not what it looked like. Please, let's talk about this. We can figure this out." "Not what it looked like," I said. "It looked like you had sex with that asshole in our bed. Did you sleep with him or not? Please, Kevin, let me explain." I interrupted her. "Either you slept with him or you didn't. What is this? This is not such a difficult question. Just answer it." I waited a few seconds and said, "Since it is so difficult for you to answer this question, our conversation is over. I'm going out for dinner. You have 1 hour to take whatever you want and get the hell out of my life. If you're still here when I get back, I'll beat the crap out of you and then throw your sorry ass out. That's it. You have 1 hour. This ends our conversation." Then I walked out the door. I waited 2 hours before returning. I hoped she would leave. You see, I'm a man of my word, and I would beat the crap out of her, even though she's a woman and my wife. When I returned home, she was gone, and most of her personal belongings were gone too. She left me a note. I wasn't even going to read it, but then I thought maybe I should. Note from Rachel. "Dear Kevin, I made a mistake, a really big mistake. Jim means nothing to me. He was an old school friend of mine that I ran into by chance. We were lovers back in school. You knew I wasn't a virgin when we got married. It was Jim who was my first love. Everything just happened, and old memories never die. I ran into Jim at the mall. It was so nice to see him again, just like an old friend. Well, he started flirting with me, and I started reminiscing about old times. He asked me where I lived, and we walked up to the house. I should have been smarter, but I made a mistake. When we entered the house, I showed him around. When we got to the bedroom, he pulled me into his arms and kissed me. It just seemed like old times. And then it happened. We started hugging like before, and then he took me. God, I wish this had never happened, but it did. I'm so sorry that I hurt you. Please take me back. I promise to be a good wife and never cheat again. I really love you, Kevin. I always love you, Rachel." The note hurt me even more. Now this idiot had a name. I loved my wife. but I'm one of those psychos who believes that love can be lost. In my case, it completely disappeared. This was replaced by revenge. Revenge isn't necessarily what you want. It's something you just have to do. I would have had mine. The next day, I canceled work because I had to switch our checking and savings accounts. I called most credit card companies and canceled them. I kept the two that were in my name just for any expenses I might incur. I'm a stubborn bastard and I'm not afraid to admit it. That's just the way it is. Rachel's father called and asked what the problem was between me and Rachel. I got angry and said, "What the hell is happening to you? Don't tell me you didn't have the courage to ask your own daughter about it." "Well, George, I caught your precious, cheating daughter having sex with one of her friends in our bed. I'm not one to forgive, so I kicked her out the door. She had a chance to take everything she wanted, and I won't give her another dime. If she wants to go to court and air her dirty laundry, that's fine with me. Otherwise, leave me the fuck alone." Then I just hung up. 2 days later, Karen, Rachel's younger sister, called me and asked if I could talk to her for a few minutes. I told her, "Go ahead and say I'm listening." She started saying that Rachel was so sorry, until I cut her off. "I don't give a damn how sorry Rachel is. Is there anything else you want to say? If you say Rachel's name again, I'll hang up. Your cheating sister is no longer in my life." Karen asked if there were any other personal items left in the house that belonged to her sister. I just told her that her sister had an hour to take whatever she wanted with her. If she forgot something, it was too damn bad. Karen mentioned a few things. I was starting to get angry again, so I answered in the only way I knew how. "Karen, I'll tell you what. You come here and give yourself to me on my bed, and I will let you take whatever you want for your precious sister." She screamed back, "You pathetic son of a bitch! How dare you talk to me like that? Wait until I tell my husband, and you can deal with him. Does this mean I won't have a chance to fuck you? I always thought that you would be very good at making love." Well, then this pitiful semblance of a husband came here. I wasn't afraid of this weakling. He was simply a friendly person towards his wife. I doubted I would ever see him at my door. I heard someone in the background talking on the phone. I knew it was Rachel. Karen must have handed her the phone. All I heard was, "Kevin, you son of a bitch." And then I just hung up. I contacted my lawyer and asked him to fill out the necessary paperwork without giving Rachel anything. We rented a house, and each of us had our own car. Otherwise, I just kept savings accounts. Rachel never struggled with divorce. I made it clear that I would not talk to anyone in the family except Karen, and then only if she complied with my demands. Damn, I was a tough nut to crack. Karen was a beauty. She was a little prettier than her sister Rachel. Both were attractive women, but Karen was several years younger and probably made love much less, given her weakling husband. I was preparing to move out of the house, and the divorce was already final. I called Karen on the phone and asked if she would like to pick up a few of her sister's personal items. That I'm moving into an apartment and don't want to carry her crap with me. If she hadn't come and taken it, I would have just thrown it all away. She quickly said that yes, she would come and pick up the things that evening. I told her to either come alone or bring this pathetic version of her husband with her. Under no circumstances should Rachel have been standing at my door. When Karen showed up at my door that evening, she was alone. I asked about her husband, but she said he was busy. I knew the truth was that he was afraid, and she knew I was going to have her. When she entered the house, we went into the bedroom, where I collected her sister's things. She reached for one of the boxes when I said, "Wait a little. You haven't paid for it yet." She looked at me and said, "You can't be serious, can you?" "I'm not going to make love to you." I laughed. "No, not love, just ordinary unbridled sex. You've been thinking about this for a long time." Then I grabbed her as she hit my chest. I said, "Come on, Karen, you're not fooling anyone. It's just you and me." Then I kissed her. I slid my hand down her leg, under her skirt, and moved my hand back up her thighs. She wasn't wearing underwear. She removed her hands from my neck, and I pushed her onto the bed. "Tell me what you want, Karen. Tell me that you want me to take you. Come on, Karen, say it. Please take me, Kevin. Take possession of me. Please put on protection, Kevin. That's all I ask." "Fuck you, available girl. You are just like your sister. I will take possession of you, but without any protection, and you will receive the full load." "Well, Karen, what will it be?" By this time, she was feeling hot. I took control of her, then simply zipped up my pants and looked at her. I walked over, grabbed a couple of boxes of her sister's things, and headed to her car. When I returned, she started yelling at me. "You son of a bitch! You just use me for your pleasure! How can you be so cold, so callous? What happened to you? Where is the funny Kevin who was once here?" "He died. Your sister killed him. She did to me what I just did to your husband. I made him a cuckold, a weakling. You got what you wanted, just like your sister. Now take her things and get the hell out of my house. Don't forget to tell your husband that you cheated on him when you get home. He's probably weak enough to stay with you. By the way, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. I can't stand a cheating wife. You have all your sister's things, so there shouldn't be any reason for you to come back." She called me a bastard, grabbed the last box of things, and left my house. She was damn good at sex, but I knew I only wanted her to get back at her sister. Sex can never replace love. This just can't be true. It seems to be building up in you. It's all you think about. To take revenge, to get even, to make the criminals pay for their actions. This was my goal. I knew this wouldn't solve my problems. I knew it, but it was just something I had to do. Whether I was right or wrong, I was going to take revenge. Her name was Carly, a cute petite girl that I saw every day. Sometimes you have a desire, a feeling that you cannot get rid of. That's how I felt when I saw this girl almost every day. She came to the restaurant with her girlfriends. They were all laughing and seemed to be enjoying their lives. One of the girls she had lunch with was Marcia. I knew her for many years. We were friends, but not very close. Something like, "Hi, Marcia, how are you today?" Like friends. Marcia knew about my divorce. In a small community, almost everyone you know has heard these rumors. One day, when Marcia came into the restaurant alone during lunch, I invited her to have lunch with me. I wanted to talk to her. She sat up, a little alarmed. I told her it was only for lunch and that I was tired of always eating alone. We talked about her family and how the children were doing. She told me about her husband's promotion and everything in general. She asked me about my life and how things were after the divorce. Everyone knew that Rachel cheated on me, but no one knew with whom. If anyone ever had the courage to ask, I just told them I didn't know who it was, and it didn't really matter. I asked Marcia about the new girl in their office. She told me her name was Carly. She and her husband Jim moved here about a year ago. When she said the name Jim, I just felt uneasy. Marcia looked at me and said, "Kevin, Carly is a happily married woman. You're not going to flirt with her, are you?" Everyone knew about my tough character from the moment of the divorce. I told Marcia that I thought Carly was a beautiful woman, and I was just wondering who she was. She gave me more information about Jim, and then I had to find out if he was who I thought he was. If that was the case, then there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to sleep with Carly. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't help it. One day during lunch, I was sitting in a corner booth with my friend having lunch. He never really asked me about my personal life. He knew better, so we got along great. While we were eating, Carly and her husband walked in. It was the son of a bitch I caught with my wife. Damn, I wanted to go back and knock him out again, but I kept my cool. He never recognized me because he only saw me for a few seconds while I was beating the crap out of him. But unfortunately, I recognized him and decided to do the same to his wife as he did to mine. One day, when Carly was alone in a restaurant, I started talking to her. I introduced myself and mentioned that I was friends with Marcia. I wanted to calm Carly down. She smiled and introduced herself. I asked her if she wanted to sit at the same table. She seemed a little nervous until I told her that she would have to pay for her own lunch. This made her laugh as we sat down. She launched into a rant as she told me about herself and pointed out that her husband, Jim, had transferred here a little over a year ago. She stated that they had a rather rough start here, that her husband was attacked by two men and stole everything he had. He had to go to the emergency room and receive stitches above his left eye. She said he was in a terrible state when he returned home. She mentioned that he filed a police report, but it didn't have a good enough description, and the police never caught the culprits. That explained why he never turned me in to the police. After dinner, I told her that it was so nice to meet her and that I didn't mind any time she wanted to sit at the same table. Now I have a real problem. I liked Carly. I really liked her. I needed revenge, and at the same time, I didn't want to hurt Carly. What to do? I'd have to think about this. I saw her almost every day, and most of the time, with other girls from her office. She always looked at me and smiled. One day, in passing, I told her that I was going to start lunch an hour late, so I probably wouldn't have a chance to have lunch with her anymore, but lo and behold, the next day she had lunch an hour late and was alone. She came to my table and asked to join me. Of course, I said yes, and we started having lunch together almost every day. We started to become good friends, and I started to have strong feelings for her. One day I stood up and told her that I thought she was one of the most beautiful, sweetest women I had ever met. If she weren't married, I would ask her out. She got nervous and said, "But I'm married, Kevin. I may not have the best marriage, but I would never cheat on my husband. I can't. This is simply wrong." I had to ask her about that last statement. "What's wrong with your marriage?" She had tears in her eyes and said she thought her husband was cheating on her, but she wasn't sure. I took her hand and just held it for a minute. She trembled as I did my best to calm her down. I wondered what kind of asshole would turn down a wonderful woman like this to just have sex with anyone. What an idiot. Then I started wondering if he was back with Rachel again. I looked at Carly and told her that I needed to talk to her about something very important, but I couldn't do it there, and asked if she would meet me after work. I needed her to trust me enough to come to my house where we could talk privately. "Kevin, I can't go to your apartment. What would it look like? What will people think?" I just thought about Rachel for a second. Why couldn't she be like that? "Carly, it's extremely important for me to talk to you. I care about you too much not to tell you what I know. Please meet me. I think I trust you, Kevin. I really like you, but I don't know you well enough to be alone with you in the apartment. Can we meet here and talk either in the car or in a restaurant?" "Okay, Carly, let's meet here after work. I'll even treat you to dinner." She smiled at me and said, "Boy, it must be important if you're willing to treat me to dinner." And she laughed. I needed to get my thoughts in order. What would I say? How would I say this? I didn't want to risk alienating Carly. I wanted her for my revenge, but now I also wanted her for myself. Yes, stubborn old son of a bitch. Kevin fell in love with another man's wife. Damn it, it wasn't supposed to happen this way. I just had to take her in front of her husband and then laugh at him. Why did it have to be her? Damn it, we met for dinner. She told me that she talked to Marcia and was told about my divorce and how I caught my wife having sex with another man. She said it must have been terrible to see this in my own home. She stated that she was very sorry for me. She was so afraid of finding out the same information about her husband that she didn't know how she would handle it if it happened to her. Carly, there are a few things I need to tell you about myself. I know you're married, but I'm falling in love with you. Please, Kevin, don't say anything else. I'm a married woman. Carly, I need to tell you all this. I have to tell you, and you have to listen, please. Like I said, I'm falling in love with you. My problem is that I'm a stubborn bastard. Having my wife and her lover together made me this way. I know you've heard people say what a sneaky bastard I've become. I can't help it. I always walk around with a chip on my shoulder. My wife put this chip there with her lover. My plan was revenge. I was going to find her lover's wife and take her in front of her husband. Yes, that son of a bitch was married too. Carly interrupted me. Please, Kevin, you don't have to tell me that. It's so personal, and I know it hurts you to talk about it. I can hear it in your voice. Let me continue, please, Carly. As I said, I was going to take revenge on my wife's lover and rape his wife in front of him. Now, I have a big, big problem. The woman I was going to take by force, if necessary, was the woman I fell in love with. Carly covered her face with her hands in shock. She knew that this man was her husband, and the woman I fell in love with was her. Tears rolled down Carly's face. My God, this is so hard to believe. How do you know? How can you be so sure? Were you going to rape me to get back at my husband? She cried more and more. I went to hug her to console her, but she stopped me. Please don't touch me right now, she said. I need to think a little. Carly, a year ago I found this man in my bedroom. I beat the crap out of him and threw him out of my house without any clothes. All I knew was that his name was Jim. Then I pulled out of my pocket the note that Rachel had left for me. For some strange reason, I saved it. I handed it to Carly for her to read. She cried reading this. I've been watching you for the past 6 months whenever you go down to the restaurant for lunch. Day after day, I waited to meet you. You were the only bright spot in my life, and I didn't even know you, but I gradually fell in love with you. At the time, I didn't know you were married. I never approached you because I had character problems and was still planning my revenge. Then one day I asked Marcia about you. She told me you were married, and I felt awkward. I really wanted to get to know you better, but I didn't want to ruin your marriage. Then the next day, your husband met you for lunch. That's when I realized who he was. I did everything in my power to not beat the crap out of him again. If you were any other woman, I would have already possessed you before his eyes, just for revenge. Carly cried with her hands folded in front of her. I continued, I fell in love with you and could not rape the woman I love. Now I am in deep confusion. I want to hurt your husband, not you. I want to make love with you. It's been a long time since I made love. The past year has been all about revenge. I believe your husband has returned to Rachel since they were childhood sweethearts, and she is now divorced. How do you feel about me, Carly? I need to know so that I know what to do. I promise, no matter how you feel about me, I won't hurt you. I just couldn't do it now. I know that I'm an asshole, a bastard, and a vindictive person. I'm stubborn as hell, but I have another side, one that hasn't seen the light of day for a year. I want to show you this man. Please give me a chance to show you this side of me. I could be a kinder, gentler person for the right woman. For some reason, deep inside me, I know that you are that woman. There's a good guy who wants to get out of here. Revenge blocks his path. Help me, Carly. Help me take revenge on your husband. Then, if you want, we could build a real happy life together. Oh my God, Kevin, so many things at once. My mind is full of questions, and right now I don't have any answers. I'm not even sure I know how I feel about you, my husband, or even myself. I need to think about everything you've told me before I can give you any answers. Please understand that I am not playing a prank on you or pushing you away. I want to help you. You seem to hurt so much inside, but I don't know. I just don't know. After a somewhat unpleasant dinner, I walked Carly to her car. I told her I was sorry if I upset her, but I thought she should know the truth. I would do everything in my power to communicate with her and solve both of our problems. Now might not be the right time to tell her about my growing feelings for her, but I would have exploded if I hadn't expressed them to her. I just wanted her to know. She actually let me give her a little hug before leaving. So far, I haven't solved a single problem. I think I just made things worse. Perhaps telling her about her husband's past was the wrong thing to do. I have no idea what she was thinking. I just hope everything turns out well for her. The next day, I couldn't wait to see her at lunch. I had to know her feelings and thoughts. I went to the restaurant where we usually ate. I waited for her, but she never showed up. My God, what have I done? Did she quarrel with her husband? Was he trying to hurt her? If he had done that, I would have killed that son of a bitch. Maybe she went the other way and just told him about me and who I was. God, her no-show made me worry. I didn't know if I should try calling her at home or just wait another day. It was difficult for me to finish my workday. I did everything I could to take my mind off Carly. When I returned home, my phone rang. It was Carly. Her voice sounded upset. Kevin, I have to see you. I know I said I shouldn't have come to you, but everything has changed. Make sure I see you tonight. Can I come in, please? Oh my God, Carly. I was so worried about you. I felt so bad today after not seeing you at lunch. Did that bastard hurt you? If he did this, I'll kill that son of a bitch. Yes, come right now. I'll be waiting here for you. When I hung up, the doorbell rang. I wonder who it could be. I opened the door, and Carly was standing there, grinning at me. I followed you home, but I needed to know if you were just blowing smoke or if you really wanted to help me. When you answered the phone like that, I knew you were being honest with me. Sorry for this little test, but I had to be sure. God, I was so glad to see her. I hugged her tightly, and it felt so good. I asked, "Why didn't you go to lunch today?" She told me, "Last night I spent the whole evening trying to put my thoughts in order. Jim, my husband, returned home late. He used his usual excuse. He worked late. I tried to be a little affectionate with him, but he didn't want any part of it. He said he was tired and was going to bed. I thought to myself, if a man refuses to have sex with a woman like Carly, he's either just gone crazy or he's brain dead." Carly said, "I waited until Jim went to work this morning and then decided to do some detective work. I started going through computer files, looking for hidden files or emails that didn't belong to me. I work on a computer at my job, so I'm pretty familiar with them. Thanks to the information you provided me, I was able to track down several files. Here's what I found." She gave me all kinds of information. She said she would explain it to me so I wouldn't have to read all the details. She looked at me and said, "First of all, I have to tell you that I don't love Jim anymore. After all the information I've learned about him, I think I despise him. I don't like it being used, and that's one of my potential problems with you." I grabbed her hands and squeezed them. Then she said, "I'm not sure how I feel about you. There's one part of me that really cares about you, but another part of me says, be careful with this. He just wants to use you for his revenge and then throw you out like a hot potato. So for now, I want to keep our relationship on hold. If you care about me like you say you do, you'll wait until our lives are clearer, and then we can move on. What are you going to say?" I smiled at her and said, "That's all I ask. This is a chance to prove yourself. I really care about you, and if I start moving too fast, please just tell me to slow down. Can we seal our deal with a kiss before we begin your detective work?" She smiled at me with a wide, stupid smile and said, "No. Let's get started right away." My husband applied for this job here. He wasn't just transferred, as he told me. He asked to be transferred. This was his first lie. This was his old hometown where he grew up. I didn't think much about it at the time. I just thought he was like a lot of people and just wanted to go back to his old ways. I loved him. So I agreed to this move. He went to a high school reunion about 16 months ago. Did your ex-wife go to this? And if so, did you go too? At that time, I was having a family holiday. It was my mom's birthday, so I went there instead. He told me that old-class reunions are usually boring anyway. Come to think of it, my wife actually had a homecoming. That weekend, I had a business trip out of town. I asked her if she wanted to come with me, but she said she wanted to see all her old friends. I never thought about it until now. Damn, you're a pretty good private investigator. Here is a copy of some emails they exchanged just before the meeting. Not love letters, but they were definitely expecting to see each other. And now here are a couple of emails from the alumni meeting. As you can see, or at least read, when you caught them having sex about 4 months later, this was not the first time they had met and had sex. They've been doing this for 4 months now. I got angry. This fucking cheater told me, "Oh, honey, it's not what you think. It just happened." I thought that my revenge on her was over since we were no longer married and that I was only going to take revenge on Jim, but now everything has changed. Carly could see the pain of the meanness in my eyes. I told Carly I wasn't mad at her at all, but being cuckolded by my ex-wife really pissed me off. Then I looked at Carly and said, "I really need to be kissed right now to calm me down, or I'm going to have to punch a wall." I got up and went to the wall. "Stop, madman! I will kiss you! I will kiss you!" she screamed. She stood up and came towards me. She hugged me and kissed me very gently for a few seconds. When our lips parted, I looked into her eyes and slowly pressed my lips to hers again with a little more feeling. When we parted for the second time, she said, "That's enough, Tiger. I'm only human too." When we sat down again, I thanked her. She looked at me and said, "It pleases me, and I really mean pleasure. Now let's get back to work. I can't hang around here all night." We both laughed, thinking about the same thing. Here are copies of my husband's phone records for the last year or so. As you can see, this number receives calls almost daily. I called the phone company and it belongs to someone named Rachel Miller. This is my wife's maiden name. I didn't even know she took it back. Besides, I never knew she had a cell phone. When was it purchased? According to my husband's phone records on this number, it must have been about a month before he was beaten up by a couple of thugs named Kevin. She smiled. That means she had the phone before you caught them. This might explain why they got away with it for so long, and also why she didn't fight for more money during the divorce. Some of this might come out and wouldn't help her case. What about you, Carly? Where do you stand in all of this? For me now, it's mostly revenge, but you're still married to that bastard. What do you want us to do? She looked at me, knowing that I said the word we instead of you. I want to thank him for everything we have. I want to make him regret ever doing this to me. I want to embarrass him in public. How can I do all this without becoming a cheater? I want to save my pride, and hopefully yours. Carly, do you think you can live in his house for a couple of weeks without giving anything away? No problem. I just don't want to have sex with him. Otherwise, I have no problem cooking a dinner or two. If he continues to see his girlfriend regularly, I'll be fine. Well, Carly, first you need to go shopping. We can go there during lunch if you want. Make sure you use joint credit cards in both your names. We don't want you to get in trouble if you only use cards in his name. Buy yourself everything you've always wanted. Get into as much debt as you can. Take a few cash advances and put the money in a savings account or buy bonds and stocks. Kevin, aren't you a stockbroker? Why don't you invest for me? I didn't want you to have any doubts about me. I really care about you, and I want you to trust me. I can invest this money for you if you want. I just want you to know that I don't want any of this. I'm here to help you. If at any point you decide to make love to me, it will be revenge for me. We decided that credit cards would be our starting point. As she stood up to leave, I asked her if I would have any more kisses tonight. She hugged me, opened her mouth slightly, and kissed me. I felt like a teenager and pulled her body towards mine. She pressed her pelvis against me. Then she pulled away, saying, "Damn, you're good. See you tomorrow at lunch." She smiled and got into her car. The next day, instead of lunch, we went to a couple of banks. Using her joint credit cards, she took out thousands of dollars in cash advances. This would give her a month to complete all of her transfers before her credit card bills are due. She was smart. She didn't max out any cards, just in case he used any of them. She did find out that he was charging motel room rates twice a week from one of the cards. We did our banking for 3 days using 7 different payment cards. I took the checks and deposited all the money for her. I used tax-exempt government bonds and other accounts that would have been difficult to withdraw money from. Carly made me transfer the bills into my name so her husband couldn't get a penny of the money. I did make her co-signer on the bills, so I couldn't take any money without her signature. The guarantor was my idea. I wanted her to feel secure because of the investment and because of me. I started finding out the latest news about my ex. I couldn't find almost anything. I gave Carly all the information I could about her, and she took advantage of it. She said Rachel now works for the same company as her husband. Rachel was one of the company secretaries. Carly took advantage of her connections and found out where they spent their time when not at work. They became sloppy. Because they cheated for so long, they thought no one noticed. Carly told her friends to start taking pictures and taking notes about everything that was happening. I learned that everyone loved Carly. All the other secretaries respected her. Whenever they had problems with their computer, they called her. I learned that she was literally obsessed with computers, but without looking like a nerd. She went from office to office helping secretaries with their computer problems. They never felt humiliated or laughed at because Carly always took the time to explain procedures to them. They all felt like they were protecting her. I didn't know about my revenge. How was I going to do this? I couldn't rape Carly, not now, when she was the only good person in my life. My ex-wife has left my life, but I wouldn't mind getting a little revenge on her since it was a long-term affair before our divorce. But how and what could I do? Without Carly's help, I'm not sure I could have gotten through this. Carly told me she couldn't just have sex with me right now. If she did, she would be no better than my cheating wife or her husband. She really cared about me, but she was still a married woman. I needed a plan. What to do, what to do. Like I told you, I was a tough guy and have remained so for a year. I worked out and kept myself in good physical shape. I had to do it. I had many friends of dubious character. Frankly speaking, they were pimps and prostitutes. I was their investment broker. We made a lot of money together. They made money, and I invested it for them. Yes, I did have affairs with several available girls. Believe it or not, some of them were really nice people. Of course, others were not so nice. Fortunately, I knew who was who. It was really good to be friends with them. They did me a lot of good just because I didn't humiliate them. I may not have agreed with their way of life, but they were people too. I called one of my pimp friends and asked him for a favor. When I finished explaining this to him, he laughed out loud and said, "Dude, you're a terrible bastard. Do you know that this will cost you dearly?" "There are no freebies in this world," I told him. "No problem, Big Louis. The main thing is that everything is done correctly. Perhaps this will even be some kind of bonus for you." "Good deal. My plan is finally coming to fruition." One evening, Carly and I got together to plan our secret operation. She was worried that I might still want to pick her up in public, and that went against everything she believed. She truly was a special woman with good character. I promised her, and God is my witness, that I would never hurt or embarrass her in any way. She just gave me her patented ice-breaking smile and said, "I think I'm really falling in love with you. Just thought you should know." I asked her to take the next couple of days off as vacation, sick leave, or maternity leave. It didn't matter, except that we only had a couple of days to organize this operation. To succeed, everything had to work like clockwork. "Well, what's our plan, Kevin? How are you going to get revenge without using me? What do you need me to do?" "First, stop asking so many questions," I smiled at her. "So next Wednesday you say they have room 109 booked. Is that correct?" "Yes, they reserved the room until 10 in the evening. They always seem to book the same room and always for about 5 hours. Not the best of motels, but they need to rent it out by the hour. Funny, the way Jim made love to me, he could have rented it for 15 minutes and saved a lot of money." "Okay, now, tomorrow I'm going to book the same room for Wednesday morning. I'm about to set up a remote control VCR. While I'm at it, you need to meet with my lawyer. Sally Hawk is the best damn take-no-prisoners lawyer. This is what you want to write down. This will be your divorce decree, stating that you want a divorce under the circumstances. Then by Wednesday night, you'll have to get Jim's signature on it." "How do you know he'll sign it, Kevin? What if he says no? What will I do?" "Don't worry, Carly, I'm pretty sure he'll sign it. The consequences are too great. Do you want me to tell you the whole plan? Or do you want to wait and be surprised?" "Oh my God, Kevin, you're driving me to a nervous breakdown. I don't think I could wait to find out anything. You seem so excited and it rubs off on me. The only thing I want you to touch me is myself. You are so special to me that I want you as much as I want this revenge. We will take revenge. This is for both of us. Then I just hope that you feel the same way about me that I feel about you. Then my revenge will be complete." "Are we really going to completely ruin their lives, Kevin?" "I don't feel very good about this. I just kind of want to get even. We're going to throw their lives into chaos, but their lives will go on, unless they're stupid enough not to sign your divorce papers." "Okay, honey, here's my plan." They usually meet between 5 and 6 o'clock. Since Jim usually gets there about half an hour before Rachel, we're going to work on him. My friend Big Louie is coming to see Jim. Sally and Sue will be with him. These are girls of easy virtue who are currently not working due to a severe case of syphilis. I'll pay them for unprotected sex with Jim. Both of them. Big Louis is here to make sure he takes care of his women. The last thing Jim wanted to do was cross Big Louie. "How do you know these people, Kevin?" "They are my clients. They bring in a lot of money, and I help them invest it. Of course, when Rachel arrives, she will have a choice. Get hold of her lover, Jim, or Big Louie will have a blast. Now, during all these sexual acts, You and I will sit in the van and control the remote control. Then, when the time is right, you will go in, catch them red-handed, and demand a divorce. Then you will go to the closet and give Jim a choice. Sign the divorce papers, or you walk away with the tape and send a copy to his employers and the company's home office. The choice is his. Then, after his choice is made, you return to the van. Big Louie will be there to protect you from any harm. He won't leave until you leave. Well, what do you think, Carly? Will it work? She smiled at me and said, "You're doing this more for me than for yourself, aren't you? God, you know there's another side to you, and I'm starting to really like it. Begin." Over the next 2 days, we prepared everything. Carly met with Sally Huck, our lawyer, who said she wanted to be there for Jim's divorce papers. There was no doubt that she would get his signature on the legal document. She was the most famous divorce lawyer in the state. Sally said it was such a cool plan and that we had sent her a lot of orders over the years. She was a good friend and just wanted to be in on the action. Big Louis was ready. We paid him in advance and told him he'd get an extra $500 if all went well. He simply smiled and said, "No problem." I drove to the motel and got a room for Wednesday afternoon. The receptionist said that I had to leave by 16 o'clock because the room was already rented. I met up with Carly and we went to lunch at a really nice restaurant. Lo and behold, my ex-sister-in-law was having lunch with some guy who wasn't her husband. I told Carly who it was, and she asked if it would hurt our plans. I told her that the man who was with Karen was not her husband, and since she didn't know Carly, we could enjoy our lunch. When Karen saw me, she was horrified. Caught, so to speak, at the crime scene. I could see that she was very nervous and was wondering who I was with. Carly looked great. Her breasts were hanging out, she had no bra, and her skirt was about 4 inches above the knee. Carly understood everything very quickly. She moved to the seat next to me instead of across from me. Then she turned my face towards her and kissed me. She put everything into that kiss. Not only Karen watched, but also everyone who could see us. Carly pulled away and smiled, saying, "Do you think that caught anyone's attention?" Then she kissed my open mouth again. She stopped when the waiter started making strange noises. I looked at the waiter and said, "She is a very beautiful woman, isn't she?" He replied, "Yes, that's true, sir." "You belong to me, don't you, honey?" When I looked at her. "Only for you, baby." "I belong only to you," she smiled. God, I hoped it was true, but I knew she was putting on a show, so my ex-daughter-in-law would have something to say to Rachel. Karen never came to see us. God, I wonder why. Carly and I finished our lunch and headed out the door. We went to an electronics store and picked out the equipment we needed. When we left, she said that the kiss in the restaurant was real. She said that she was not joking, although she did it to spite my ex-daughter-in-law. Wednesday morning arrived. Carly and I were both on edge. Any operation with revenge strains the nerves. Every detail had to be timed and done correctly. Not much room for error. Carly met with Sally to make sure the divorce papers were in order. I went to the motel room and set up the video equipment. I parked the rental van right outside the building so it wouldn't be conspicuous that evening. Carly and I went to visit Big Louie. When he saw Carly, he was stunned. "God, dude, who is this doll?" he asked. I looked at him and introduced Carly. I know she was nervous, but Big Louis had a tendency to affect people that way. He was about 2 meters tall and weighed about 145 kilograms, blacker than the ace of spades, but he was a really smart guy. He had a master's degree in business. His fortune was in the millions. I know because I was his financial broker. He saw that she was nervous and told her, "Don't worry, little lady. Nobody will harm you. Kevin is my friend, and I respect the man. I will make sure you are protected. Nobody will harm you." She felt a little better and thanked him for his kindness. Louis said he and his girls would show up around 5:15 p.m. He wanted to give Jim a few minutes to clean himself up. Earlier that day, Carly put some of her computer knowledge to use. She emailed Jim and Rachel saying the note was from someone else. It said, "Honey, I have a special treat for you tonight. Please don't ask any questions when you arrive. I know you'll be surprised. Just keep going. Also, to make it even more special, let's not communicate for the rest of this day. I want you to remember this night forever. Love you. At 4:45 p.m. Carly and I got into our van and waited. At exactly 5:00 p.m., Jim arrived and entered the room. We were very nervous. This was a big undertaking for us. At 5:15 p.m., we watched Big Louie enter the room with Sally and Sue. When they knocked on the door, we turned on our cameras. We didn't want to start recording until the action started. We had 2 cameras turned on, one above the lights and the other inside the fire alarm. The quality of the image from the pinhole camera was incredible. I had to remember to come back tomorrow and pick up my video cameras. Carly and I were nervous as hell when Big Louie knocked on the door. When he opened the door, we heard Jim ask, "Who are you?" Louis explained, "I was paid to bring 2 of my women into this room for some sexual stimulation." Jim said, "It must be some kind of mistake." Louis then asked, "Are you having trouble having fun with my ladies' mate? Are you Jim Nelson?" Jim said yes, but he wasn't expecting company. Louis told him that they were paid in advance to come into this room and have sex with its occupants. Louis told him that they are not a charity and do not give back any money. He then pushed his way inside and told his girls to help Jim undress. We have started recording. Jim was nervous and it showed on the tape. He thought it was a surprise that Rachel had planned for him since he had received the email earlier. So he went and took off his clothes. A little information about Sally and Sue. Sally was black and Sue was white. They were truly attractive women, despite being approachable girls. They were good at what they did. Of course, the only problem was that they had syphilis at the time, and it was very easily transmitted through sexual contact. These girls laid Jim naked on the bed and rubbed him all over his body. Big Louis just sat back in the big chair and watched. The girls were good. Carly watched them through our remote control. She was both sad and happy at the same time. She saddened that her husband, with whom she lived for 5 years, decided to cheat on her, and at the same time, glad that her revenge has begun. There was a knock on the door, and Big Louis opened it to find Rachel standing in the doorway. He told her to come in. She asked what was going on when she saw her boyfriend Jim lying on the bed with a black woman. Walking into the room, she didn't know what to think. All she knew was that Jim had sent her an email saying something special was going to happen that night. When she entered the room, Big Louie told her to undress. She was scared, looking at this big black man telling her what to do. He told her he had no intention of touching her. He was simply there to protect his girls. Sue looked at Rachel and told her that they didn't have all night and that she should hurry up and get undressed. Not knowing exactly what to do, Rachel began to undress. Sue, who was wearing only her bra and panties, helped Rachel undress. Sue sat Rachel down on the edge of the bed, then stood in front of her and pressed herself against Rachel. Rachel screamed. She has never had any sex with another woman. She thought this was Jim's plan for her, so she let it happen. The cameras recorded everything, sound and video. Both Jim and Rachel were over the moon. Once Rachel had recovered from her pleasure, Sally and Sue got out of bed and began to get dressed. There was a knock on the door of our van. It was Sally Hawk, our lawyer. She asked how things were going and then looked at the monitor. Jim took Rachel with all his might and both transferred their venereal disease onto each other. Sally and Sue returned to their car and waited for Big Louis. They did their job well. Big Louis was waiting outside the door to protect Carly and Sally Hawk in case they needed him. Carly and Sally walked to the door at the same time. Carly entered the room first. "You damn son of a bitch. You're a worthless piece of crap. You're a fucking lying idiot." Carly used every curse word she had ever learned. "I want a divorce, and I want it now." Jim and Rachel stopped what they were doing when they saw Carly at the door yelling at them. They knew they were caught red-handed. They could not explain how they could get out of this situation. Carly continued talking. "Why, Jim? Why wasn't I good enough for you that you got involved with this woman? I knew you were having an affair. I was hoping that you would put it out of your head, but no, you continued and continued to do this. I'm over it. I want a divorce, and I want it as soon as possible." Then Sally Hawk came in. "Jim, This is my lawyer, Sally Hawk. She will tell you the terms of the divorce decree. I expect to begin divorce proceedings tonight, so I can get you out of my life as quickly as possible, so you can get your girlfriend. Jim and Rachel got out of bed and started getting dressed. They didn't have time to shower, so a venereal disease was probably starting to set in. I'm Sally Hawk, Carly's lawyer. The conditions for divorce are very simple and very clear. 1. Carly will go home tonight, and she will have 24 hours to pack everything she wants. You won't be there tonight. After 24 hours, she will never return to the premises. This is an apartment rental in your name, so you can get it. 2. You will be responsible for all bills due before today's date. This includes all credit cards held in your name or jointly by both of you. Carly will deal you all the joint cards tonight and will never use them again. She will be responsible for any cards in her name only. 3. Each of you has your own vehicle and will each be responsible for insuring and paying for your own vehicle as well as for its maintenance. 4. Finally, your savings account with a balance of $8,000 will go to Carly. Tomorrow she will withdraw money from the account. You have a retirement fund that contains over $80,000. Carly has one for $15,000. In that, you will both be able to maintain your own retirement funds. If you agree to these terms, you will have to sign the decree tonight. This is irreversible. Neither of you will be able to make any changes once it is signed. Carly has already signed it. Just sign it on the line that says husband. Sally handed him the document for him to look over and sign. Rachel sat and watched. Jim said, "What if I don't sign this tonight?" "What are you going to do?" Sally said, "The document you are holding in your hands will be canceled in 5 minutes when I leave. Then we will go to court and demand the same benefits, except we will make sure that we also get half of your pension fund. This is a good deal for you. I would advise you to take this." Carly walked to the closet, opened it, and took out a tape from the VCR. "This is a recording of today's events. This will be part of our divorce process." Jim said, "I'm not that stupid. You can't use this tape. You did it without permission." Sally started laughing. "You really are a stupid bastard. We will not use it in your divorce, but we will make copies and send them to your company and your company's home office. I'm sure they don't approve of their married employees having affairs." Jim took a couple of steps towards them when Big Louie re-entered the room. "You didn't mean to hurt my friends, did you, Jim?" Jim retreated. "Well, Jim, now you have 3 minutes to make a decision, and then we'll get out of here," Sally said. Rachel turned to Jim and said, almost in a whisper, "Jim, Sally Hawk was my husband's lawyer, and I didn't get a dime. They say she is one of the best in the state. You better take this offer or you'll end up upstream in a boat without an oar. Besides, we'll lose our jobs if this tape falls into the wrong hands." Sally looked at Jim. "1 minute and we'll be out of here. See you in court." As they turned to leave, Jim shouted, "Wait, I'll sign this, but only if I get the tape." Carly looked at Big Louis and handed him the tape. "After Sally and I get out of here, you can give this tape to this idiot." She also handed him an envelope with a promised bonus of $500. Sally repeated what she had said earlier. "This document is irrevocable. If you have any questions, you should contact me. You must not disturb Carly under any circumstances, otherwise I will have you arrested and put in prison. If you understand everything I said, then sign the document and I will give you a copy along with the tape and joint credit cards. Remember, Carly has 24 hours to remove whatever she wants from the apartment. Your divorce is considered a no-fault divorce and must be completed within 2 months." Jim signed the papers and Sally gave him a copy. Then Carly and Sally both walked out the door. Shortly after, we saw Big Louie hand the tape to Jim, and then he walked out and joined his girls. Carly and Sally returned to the van with big smiles on their faces. Carly kissed me quickly. Everyone seemed so happy until I heard what Sally said. "Kevin, until the divorce is finalized, you will not be able to see Carly. We can't let anyone see you two together. As long as you two are not involved, everything should go according to plan. I know we are facing some challenges due to credit card charges over the past 2 weeks, but we have our documents on our side, unless someone suspects that Carly is trying to defraud the banks. That's why I let Jim take his pension fund. There's enough money there for the banks to go after Jim if he tries to file for bankruptcy. There is also no money with Carly's name on it, only $8,000, which she has to pick up tomorrow. I suggest you just keep them in the same bank, but only in your name. This will reduce any banking issues," Sally continued. "After the divorce, there should be no more problems, and you two can sleep together if you want. It will be up to you. Kevin, you told me that your employer asked you to go to another state and open a brokerage firm for a couple of months. I would advise you to take it as soon as possible. Carly will be okay. I'll be here to keep an eye on her. I hate to say it, but right now you are Carly's biggest problem. Of course, I cannot force you to do anything, but I strongly advise you to do it." Carly was crying, so I just hugged her. I knew Sally was telling the truth. Now I was the only problem, the only weak link in the chain. I kissed Carly goodbye and told her to contact me after the divorce. I would wait for her. Sally and Carly got out of the van. Sally took Carly home so she could take out whatever she wanted. Earlier that day, they hired a moving truck so Carly could pick up whatever she wanted. Sally did say that I could call her if I needed to talk or wanted to know anything about Carly. After the girls left, I looked at the monitor again and noticed that Jim and Rachel had left. I left, returned to the room, and collected my equipment. I brought a spare copy of the tape with me just in case we needed it in the future. Funny how no one ever wonders if there is a second copy. 2 cameras, 2 recording devices. I packed it all up and headed home. I was really happy for Carly and sad for myself. The next day, I went and talked to my boss. I talked to him about temporary work. I was supposed to fly to Chicago on Friday. I just hoped things would work out for Carly. She truly was a wonderful person. Looks like she got her revenge. I was the only one left in the cold. It was fun helping Carly. I really loved her. When I arrived in Chicago, I threw myself into my work. We were starting a new brokerage firm and starting from scratch. If I wasn't working, I was sitting in my room sulking about Carly. During the first 2 weeks, I kept wondering if Carly was okay. One day, I called Sally Hawk. She was glad to hear from me. She said everything was going well. As they expected, Jim hired a lawyer and wanted to contest the divorce. His lawyer told him that he was barking up the wrong tree, and if he wanted to face Sally, he better get a new lawyer. Jim hurled accusations at Carly. He said she set him up, but when it came to proof, he had none. Sally said she warned Jim that if he was going to keep accusing Carly of anything, she would sue him. She was fed up with his whining. Sally also told me that Jim's lawyer mentioned that both Jim and Rachel had contracted syphilis. They had to undergo a course of injections and could not have sex until everything was cleared up. Otherwise, they might get a new strain from each other. This brought a smile to my face. Finally, Sally said that Carly had moved into a nice apartment near her work. She took about half of the things from her old apartment to set up her new one. She was told not to talk about me for fear that someone would link us. Of course, she wasn't dating anyone, but it had only been a couple of weeks. Sally actually said when she was talking one-on-one with Carly that she really missed me, and that I was a really nice guy. I wish I could say that time flew by while I was in Chicago, but it didn't. I really didn't feel much better than I did before this whole revenge thing started. At least then, I could see Carly walking by every day. I went to Michigan to visit my parents for Thanksgiving. I had to leave for several days. It was nice to see the family. I took my sister Christmas shopping and bought something for everyone in my family. I went to a jewelry store and bought an engagement ring for Carly, hoping that one day she would say yes. After the Thanksgiving holiday, I headed back to Chicago. I figured I'd be there for another 3 weeks. In Chicago, all I could think about was being cold, windy, and lonely. The city lights looked beautiful, but not when I had no one to share them with. We, that is me and the new agents, raised the business from the ground floor. Things were going pretty well. Many clients came to start investing before the end of the year. When I returned to Ohio, my boss met me. He praised me for the new company's achievements. From a work point of view, everything was great. I just hoped that my personal life would be good too. As soon as I got back to my apartment, which was 2 days before Christmas, I called Sally Hawk. I haven't even had Carly's number since she moved. Sally was so happy to hear from me. She asked about the business and I told her everything went well. I asked her about Carly and how the divorce process was going. She hesitated before telling me that the divorce was final 2 days earlier. I asked her for Carly's phone number. She said she wasn't allowed to give it to me, but she would call Carly and let her know I was back in town. I thanked her, and she wished me good luck. I wasn't quite sure how I should feel. Carly was now divorced. I had no idea what she had been thinking about for the last few months since I left for Chicago. I had the brilliant idea of going to our favorite restaurant where we met for lunch every day. I went there in the hope of seeing her. My friend Marcia saw me and waved. I invited her to join me. Maybe I could learn a thing or two. Marcia started saying how nice it was to see me again. She heard that I was opening a new agency for a company in Chicago. We chatted as usual and talked about the holidays that start tomorrow. She told me about her family and how well everything was going. I asked her if Carly was still with the company. Marcia said yes, but that she and her husband had recently divorced. Everything happened so quickly. She stated that Carly must have taken it quite hard because she didn't seem that happy right now. She refused to date and spent most of her time working. Marcia said she felt sorry for her, but it was just something she had to deal with on her own. Everyone still loved her and hoped that someday she would find the right guy. She deserved better than a cheating husband who was caught with another woman. I asked Marcia if Carly was working today. She said she was there, but she got a call about an hour ago, and instead of having lunch, she left for the afternoon. She won't be back until next week after Christmas. I wished Marcia a Merry Christmas and asked her to send my greetings to her family. Then I got up and went home. There was nothing on the answering machine. I was already starting to feel slightly depressed when the phone rang. I jumped up to answer, thinking it was Carly, but it wasn't her. It was another telemarketer who needed money. I just threw the damn phone back on the table. I knew she had to call me about her investment. Come to think of it, this wasn't necessary. We had other agents available to update my files for clients while I was away. My agents and I would share any new business that was assigned to my client base. I could call the office and see if any action has been taken on any of Carly's accounts. I quickly called the office, but it went to voicemail. I looked at my watch, surprised that it was 5:12 p.m. Damn. Offices will be closed until Monday due to the holidays. I was here in the dark over the holiday weekend. All offices were closed. Damn it! My emotions were starting to get out of control. Did I have it, or did I lose it? Damn it, I needed to know something. How was I supposed to survive this weekend without knowing anything? The phone rang again. I ran up to it and picked up the receiver. It was Sally, my lawyer. She called to let me know that she had received word that I had returned to Carly. She also wanted to let me know that everything regarding the divorce was final. Jim could no longer file motions. He tried, but lost them all. He had to cash out more than half of his retirement fund to pay his bank credit card charges. I told Sally she was a true friend and great to do business with. I thanked her for the information and wished her a Merry Christmas. There was a knock on the door. I opened it and found that it was Mary, my neighbor. She picked up my mail and cleaned my apartment while I was gone. I invited her to come in for a few minutes. She was a sweet older woman who cleaned apartments to supplement her income. She usually cleaned mine about twice a week. She handed me my mail and gave me a tray of homemade cookies for the holidays. I asked her to wait a second because I had a gift for her too. I went in and gave her an envelope with 3 crisp $100 bills for Christmas. She smiled and thanked me and then left. We needed more lovely ladies like Mary in this world. She was a pleasure to be around. I was hungry, so I called the local pizzeria and ordered some pizza. I asked for it to be delivered. I didn't want to go out anywhere else tonight. I asked them to stop by the grocery store and buy me another 12 cans of Miller Lite. That's the nice part of living in a small town, the so-called hometown amenities. I decided to turn on the TV to watch the latest news and wait for my pizza to arrive. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. I got up to get my pizza. When I opened the door, Carly was standing there with a big smile on her face. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I said, "I thought you were a pizza delivery guy." She smiled. "Sorry to disappoint you. No pizza, just me." I dragged her into the living room, grabbed her and hugged her to me. God, she always felt good. "I missed you, Carly. I missed you terribly. It's so nice to see you again." She was about to say something when the doorbell rang again. I opened it up, and it was the pizza guy with my beer and pizza. I quickly paid him and closed the door. Then I turned back to Carly. "You are hungry?" "We have pizza and beer," as I held both of them in my hands. Carly looked at me and was still smiling. "You know, you're a really funny guy." I was fully prepared for what I was going to say, and here I am, and I can't even think straight. "I need to tell you a couple of things, and then we can eat the pizza while it's still hot. I know you hate cold pizza." "Okay, big guy. I missed you too. In case you haven't heard it yet, I am now a divorced woman. I just found out today that you are back. I didn't mean to leave you a phone message. It would be too tasteless. I needed to talk to you in person. I left work early after Sally called to tell me you were home. I went out to buy you something like a Christmas present. You'll see it after we finish eating. It's not every day you go out of your way to buy me dinner, so let's eat." As I was getting us a couple of paper plates, I asked her what type of gift they were. She simply smiled her ice-melting smile and said, "Then you'll see. Now eat your pizza and pass me the beer." She laughed. While we ate, we talked about her work and how well it was going. I told her about the agency we had opened and explained the details. We both avoided serious problems. They were supposed to arrive soon. After we had eaten our fill of pizza, Carly looked at me and asked, "Are you ready for your kind of gift now?" I smiled and said, "Yes. Where is it?" Carly held up a small bag the size of a lunchbox. "I'll be right back," she exclaimed. When she left the room, I put the pizza and beer on the counter and walked over to the drawer where I kept the ring I bought for her. I took it out and put it in my pocket. She shouted from the bedroom. "Are you ready?" I shouted back, "I think so." When she came in, she said, "I bought this something like for you today. You can unwrap it if you want." She stood there in a lacy red silk bra and lacy red silk bikini panties. She even had a little red silk lace bow in her hair. She looked at me and said, "I am no longer a married woman, and now I would not cheat on any husband. If you want your present, we can go into the bedroom and you can unwrap it." Tears were streaming down my face. This is the woman I've wanted for over a year. She stood offering herself to me. I looked at her and said, "On one condition." I reached into my pocket, pulled out a ring, and said, "If you marry me." She began to cry and ran to me as I began to hug her soft, warm body. She screamed, "Yes, I will marry you. Yes, 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 God, how I loved you." I picked her up and carried her to my bedroom. I put her on the bed. What a beautiful, sexy sight she was, just laying there. I stripped down to my underpants. This was supposed to be our first time together. This had to be good. I knew it would be. I took my time, kissing her neck tenderly. Everything I was going to do from then on was going to be as gentle as making love to an angel. She raised her arms above her head as I began to kiss the valley between her breasts. She smelled wonderful. I think she said it was white diamonds. Oh my God, she smelled so good that I wanted to swallow her, but I promised to continue moving carefully. I kissed her breasts while unclasping her lace silk bra. I brought it to my nose, inhaling the heady aroma for just a second. I slid one hand down to her flat stomach. She was so sexy. I felt her suck in air every time I pressed on her stomach. She was getting hot. As I descended, I could smell her feminine scent rising from the valley below. Carly didn't say anything, just something like a moan. However, I could feel it in the movements of her body. I stood up and slowly finished unwrapping my gift. When we finished, she whispered, "Kevin, I love you so much." We fell asleep. We must have slept for quite a long time. When we woke up, the house and room were completely dark. It had been a long time since I woke up next to the woman I wanted next to me. I had to get up and pee. I couldn't wait any longer. Carly stood up while I was in the bathroom. Carly rummaged through my dresser drawers and pulled out a long t-shirt to wear. The shirt has never looked so good. Carly showered and freshened up while I briefly put the leftover pizza in the refrigerator. It always tasted better out of the oven. While we ate the pizza, we talked some more. I asked Carly when she wanted to get married. She replied that she would like this to happen as soon as possible. She didn't want to wait. By then it was around 10 p.m. I called Sally Hawk at her house. In response, she asked, "What's the matter, Kevin?" She must have had caller ID. I told her that Carly and I had a problem and maybe she could help solve it since she was a lawyer. "What's the matter, Kevin? I'll help if I can." "Carly and I want to get married as soon as possible, but tomorrow is Christmas Eve and we need a judge to marry us. Do you know anyone?" Sally started laughing. "So, Carly called you, didn't she? I'm happy for both of you. Meet me tomorrow morning at the courthouse. We'll get your marriage certificate, and then we'll go to my house. You see, Mr. Hawk, my husband is a judge. I know that he will marry you. See you tomorrow at 9:00 sharp." The next morning, Carly, who was beautifully dressed, and I, dressed in a suit, met Sally in the receptionist's office. We received our certificate and headed to Sally's house to get married. Her husband seemed like a pretty nice guy for a judge. You never know what to expect from lawyers and judges, but we knew Sally was the best. Carly doesn't have many relatives left in the area, just a few distant relatives. So we decided to head to Michigan and surprise my family with my new wife. To say they were happy or overjoyed would be putting it mildly. Enthused would be a better word. They all loved Carly. How could they not do this? She was definitely part of the family. Wow. Christmas turned out to be pretty good after all. We had to return after Christmas. We both had jobs, and now we had to move. We decided to live in my apartment. She had a month's rent anyway. Every day after work, we would move some of her things to my house. It was fun to do almost everything together. The girls where she worked were so happy for her. They said the old Carly was back. Marcia was a little shocked when she found out that I was her new husband, remembering that I was a tough guy and very vindictive. I remember Carly telling her, "Don't worry, Marcia. He's a puppy, and I love him very much." A big New Year's party was approaching. Almost all the successful businessmen from the area were present. I asked Carly, "Honey, do you want to go to the party of the year? Our first time that everyone can see us together. I want to brag about you. Besides, even our ex-spouses may be there." Carly thought for a moment, then looked at me and said, "Kevin, I love you with all my heart and I want everyone to know it." "Yes. We will go to the New Year's party, my dear husband." We went to a New Year's party. Carly looked stunning. She wore a red blouse that matched perfectly with her lace bra and red silk panties. Lace and silk don't make it much sexier, except the blouse has a really low neckline that shows off her ample bust. She was wearing a black miniskirt with a lace hem. She'll have to watch how she fits in that skirt. No matter how she sat, her thigh was visible through the side slit. She looked so good that she was dressed to the point of being slutty, but in a good way. Everyone wanted us to sit at their table, my boss and his group, Carly's friends, and even the few friends I had. Sally and Judge Hawk invited us to their table. That's where we decided to sit. I looked at Sally and told her that I had never seen a lawyer look so good. She looked fantastic. They introduced us to everyone else at their table. It was mostly judges and their wives, and they all seemed like pretty nice people. The music was loud, but it was New Year's Eve. Carly and I got up and did all the slow dances. Other men asked Carly to dance, but she always answered, "Not this year. I only want to dance with my husband." This was our year to be together. The only exception we made was that I danced one dance with Sally, and Carly danced once with the judge. They were special friends. As we danced, we ended up next to Karen, my ex-wife's sister. We just happened to almost run into Karen and her husband on the crowded dance floor. She looked and said, "Oh my God, it's Kevin." I looked at her and said, "Well, good evening, Karen, and Happy New Year to you." Then I said, "I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Carly. Carly, this is Karen and her husband." He reached forward to shake Carly's hand and said, "Bob, my name is Bob." Carly gave him her signature smile and said, "Nice to meet you, Bob and Karen." Carly then looked at Karen and said, "Didn't we meet before at Robson's restaurant on 40 Old Route about 2 months ago?" Bob replied, "No, this place is too expensive for our tastes." Karen turned pale and said, "It was nice to meet you. We must return to our places." We knew she had to come back and tell Jim and Rachel that we were there. We looked at their table. Rachel knocked back her drink when she found out I was there. We saw them quickly turn and look at us. We heard Rachel say, "Oh my God, Jim, he's with your ex-wife." Jim nearly fell out of his chair trying to turn and look. Karen looked at Rachel and said, "Rachel, he introduced her as his wife." Jim said, "That son of a bitch set us up. They took us in for over $100,000. Plus, they set us up to get a sexually transmitted disease. How did they know everything?" Rachel said, "Kevin told me he'll get even with us someday." Jim said, "Maybe we can try to take them back to court." Karen laughed. "Stop it, you two. Guys, do you see who they are sitting with? Sally Hawk and half a dozen judges? And if that's not enough, Jim, he can kick your ass from now until tomorrow. Make no mistake, Kevin is a real man, and from the looks of his wife, she's a real woman. They would make a great couple." It was already past midnight, and the crowd was beginning to thin out. Sally and the judge said goodnight to us and to the people at their table. So after our next dance, Carly and I decided to sit in a booth not far from Rachel, Jim, and their group. Carly went to the toilet. When she returned, she looked at Jim and Rachel, who seemed to be looking at her and me from under their brows. Carly asked me if I was ready. I looked at her and asked, "Ready for what?" "Should I go home, honey?" "No, Kevin, you're ready for your revenge," as she slipped her lacy red silk panties into my breast pocket, which stuck out like a handkerchief. Then, right in front of Jim, Rachel, Karen, and Bob, they had sex. Then, loud enough to be heard at the other table, she said, "Happy New Year, darling." Who said revenge isn't sweet? Happy New Year. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.